She grew up in a middle-class home. She was the daughter of a working mom, and she worked at McDonald's while she got her degree. Kamala Harris knows what it's like to be middle class. It's why she's determined to lower healthcare costs and make housing more affordable. Donald Trump has no plan to help the middle class, just more tax cuts for billionaires. Being president is about who you fight for, and she's fighting for people like you.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
That Kamala Harris ad is airing on Fox News, where the audience is very much behind Donald Trump. So why are they doing it?
White working class voters, white voters without a college degree. That is Donald Trump's core group. That was the reason why he was able to break down that giant blue wall, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, in the Great Lakes. And look at their support now versus where we were a few months ago when the matchup was between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Look, Donald Trump still leads. But look at that margin. It has shrunk significantly. It was 25 points back in May. It is now 14 points now here in August, nearly been sliced by half. Those numbers that Harris is putting up amongst that group right now are actually slightly better than Joe Biden did 4 years ago amongst those voters in those key states. Those are the types of numbers that Kamala Harris needs to put up in order to win. And of course, Joe Biden was like, I don't want to drop out of the race because I'm not sure that Kamala Harris can break in with this group, but it turns out she absolutely can.
Also, the economy. When we look at that, we just were talking about that. That's an issue Trump has been extremely strong on. Is that changing?
It is. I mean, again, look, we're still looking at Trump having a clear advantage amongst white working class voters in, the Great Lake battleground states. But again, the margin is shrinking, and elections are all about margins. You see it shrinking. He had a 36-point advantage in May. It's now down to 24 points here in August. Non-college whites are a key group across the board. They are a plurality of voters in the electorate when you compare them with college-educated whites or if you compare them with African Americans and Hispanics. The fact that Harris is closing in on Trump with them is the big reason why she has those advantages.
The concern within the Trump campaign must be going from panic to full-blown terror now. Because when Trump panics, he finds a way to lie even more blatantly than normal.
Kamala and Joe tried to take credit for $35 insulin. You know that. You know who did that? I did that. I did the insulin, and it kicked in. And I remember when I did it, it had to be a statute. It was a certain statute that took a certain period of time. I said, I hope I'm elected because somebody's going to get a lot of credit for doing what I got done. I got it done, $35 insulin, and now they take credit for it. It's terrible, terrible. They take credit for a lot of things they shouldn't be taking credit for. If they said, congratulations, you did a good job on insulin, that would be nice. Nobody's going to go crazy about that. Congratulations, because insulin was impossible for people to afford. They were dying. They didn't get it. The expense was, I got it for $35. Nobody thinks it's even possible. But they could say you did a great job, thank you very much. Or you did a good job. But instead, they say, we brought insulin in at $35. It's a lie.
One of Trump's biggest verbal signals that he's lying is when he retells a story where everyone says, sir, before every sentence. Another is when he claims his opponent is doing the exact thing that he's actually doing, so that when he gets called out for it, he can hide behind his preemptive accusation.
For the first time, Medicare has negotiated the cost of prescription drugs directly with drug manufacturers. This morning, the Biden administration is announcing new, lower prices for some of the most expensive drugs out there, including major medications that manage diabetes, prevent strokes and blood clots. The discounted prices see a drop of up to 79%. The White House says the savings are so significant, if they had been in place last year, it would have saved Medicare $6 billion.
Since Trump has fooled his followers into debating about the facts over who's responsible for this accomplishment, let's dive in. Trump did get a $35 a month cap on insulin for some seniors through a voluntary program that Medicare prescription drug plans could choose to participate in. But Biden ensured that all 3.4 million plus insulin users on Medicare got $35 a month insulin through a mandatory cap that not only covers more people than Trump's voluntary cap, but also applies to a greater number of insulin products and stays in effect at a level of individual drug spending at which Trump's cap disappeared. So the Biden administration's policy on this goes further and is more permanent than Trump's. Donald can claim that he did the half-assed version of the more complete plan that Biden got done, but that would reveal that Trump did it only for political window dressing instead of fully serving his constituents' needs. So when CNN asked the Trump camp for a comment on the differences, A Trump campaign spokesperson provided an emailed statement that asserted Biden had replaced Trump's insulin cap with a weaker policy. But after CNN outlined the ways Biden's policy is demonstrably stronger than Trump's and asked how it could reasonably be considered weaker, the Trump camp shut the hell up. Here are a couple of examples of where Trump falls on the subject of Medicare and Social Security in case his credit-stealing tour starts picking up some steam.
One last question.
Go ahead.
Entitlements ever be on your plate?
At some point they will be. We have tremendous growth. We're going to have tremendous growth. This next year, it'll be toward the end of the year. The growth is going to be incredible. And at the right time, we will take a look at that. You know, that's actually the easiest of all things, if you look, because it's such a big percentage.
If you're willing to do some of
If you don't cut something in entitlements, you'll never really deal with the debt.
We'll be cutting, but we're also going to have growth like you've never had before.
You changed your outlook on how to handle entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Mr. President. It seems like something has to be done, or else we're going to be stuck at 120% of debt to GDP forever.
So first of all, there is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting.
Republicans have been dancing on that line of advocating against what they pejoratively call entitlements like Social Security and Medicare, while also claiming that they want to protect it so that voters won't run them out of town. It's all a part of that big, beautiful health care plan that Trump has been promising for years. You know, the one that consists of those same two elements.
Donald Trump has been, for instance, saying that he's going to introduce a big, beautiful health care plan. And there are no specifics on it. And Kamala is being held to a standard where she has to tell you the nuts and bolts of things, where people are saying, you tell us exactly that. She's supposed to talk about her economic plan on Friday. The press is already saying it'll be, quote, light on detail. They don't know. Could it be as light as big and beautiful? I doubt it.
Are you actually arguing that Donald Trump is held to a lower standard than Kamala Harris?
Yeah, actually I am. If you could say, I'm going to get rid of Obamacare and I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do, then that is the lowest standard of all time.
Despite Jessica Tarlow's obvious comparison of expectations for Donald Trump versus really anyone, the conservatives on that panel were compelled to reinforce their alternate reality that they hold him to really any standard on anything. It's why he falsely claims triumphant victories on things like COVID, the economy, and taxes. But when things don't work out, he's always got migrants to blame.
He's fighting for health care for people that are destroying our country. I'm fighting for health care for the American people, the people that are supposed to have the health care. The colossal influx of migrants into our cities is driving rent absolutely through the roof. That's why, and you know who's paying the rent? The government. Our government is paying rent. We're paying numbers that were not obtainable. In fact, if I ever went back into business, I'd buy some buildings in certain areas and I'll charge the government the highest rents you've ever seen. That's what they're doing. Some very smart landlords are getting a lot of money. That's why some of the luxury hotels are going into migrants. They can make much more money renting to a migrant than to wealthy people. But that's why, as president, I will seal the border. I will send them all back to their countries where they belong. Prices will come down and come down dramatically and come down fast.
Nothing about predatory landlords that are allowed to run roughshod over renters, or corporations buying up and inflating home prices to levels that regular people can't obtain, with employers that have paid politicians to allow them to take advantage of workers. So when something actually gets done, despite Republican efforts to stop it, they run to take credit for what they previously opposed. MAGA needs voters to be as unhappy and desperate as possible so that Trump can run this increasingly negative and angry campaign. But more people are obviously tired of it.
I love Trump. I love him to death, but I'm not a real big fan of his campaign. I'm not a real big fan of Chris LaCivita, Susie Wiles, and even J.D. Vance, who is a never-Trumper. So it begs the question, why are we even here,